Now we are going to take a look at yet another group of passages from the Quran that deal with the Bible during the time of Muhammad. Now, why is that important? Simply because if the Bible was corrupt during the time of Muhammad, then we should have known about it. Muslim people should have known about it. Why? Because if Muhammad is a prophet from God, as the Quran basically declares, and if God knows all things, and if God is the one who sent the Bible before the Quran, then we should have known from God through the Quran that the Bible is not a good book to go to. The Bible is a book that has been tampered with and basically manipulated with and has been corrupted, which is, by the way, a very grave accusation against God and his ability to protect his own word. But let's just, for a hypothetical reason, for the sake of this argument, if that was the case, then we shouldn't be seeing passages as the ones that I've shared in a couple of episodes before, and passages that we'll be sharing today, and also in other episodes that will come after this. So let's take another survey, a journey, if you wish, through these passages and see what they're telling us about the Bible. This one comes from a chapter in the Quran called Surah Al-Ahqaf, the winding sand tracts, basically. And this particular chapter, chapter 46, verse 12, is also a late Meccan passage that was revealed during the first 13 years of Muhammad's time in Mecca. Towards the end of that period, it would have been between 610 and 622 AD, so closer to 622 AD. This is what it says. And before this, before what? Before this is in reference basically to the Quran. Before this was the book of Moses. And I like the fact that it's using the singular reference, the book. Even though Moses wrote 5 books, here it's referring to the Torah, the old, the Torah, the Pentateuch, the book of the law, as one book, the book of Moses, and it's given it descriptions that even the Quran applies it to itself, but it's calling this description now for the book of Moses. Calling it what? It's calling the book of Moses to be guide and mercy. And this book is what? This book is the Quran. This book, the Quran, is what? Is a verification in the Arabic tongue. So this is a big claim now that the Quran even acknowledges that the Old Testament, the book of Moses, was revealed in a different language, which is, as we know from manuscript evidence, it is the Hebrew language, and the Old Testament also contains Aramaic as well. But it's saying that the Quran came to verify that in a different tongue. This time it's the Arabic language, to warn those who transgress and as glad tiding to the righteous. So this is very important for us to keep track of. Here's another passage in the Quran, chapter 46, verses 29 to 30. This one also comes from the same surah that we just read, Surah Al-Ahqaf. This is what it's saying. Behold, we turn towards you a company of jinns listening to the Quran. When the reading was finished, they returned to their people as warners. So here's the story. The story goes as telling us basically that Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, was reading the Quran, reciting it basically, chanting it if you wish, and a group of jinnis basically, listened and heard what he was saying. Now this is the God of Islam is reporting to Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, what transpired. Telling him that some jinnis basically listened to you as you were reading the Quran, and they got excited over this, and then they returned back to their own people, meaning the other group of the jinn. And then they reported to this group saying, "Oh, our people, we have heard a book." Which book? The Quran. We have heard the Quran basically revealed after, and they're referring to Moses. So the jinn supposedly are familiar with the Old Testament and the New Testament and the Quran now, and they're comparing this book, the Quran, to the book of Moses, and saying that this book, the Quran, came to attest to the truth, that which is between his hand. Whose hand? The his here is reference to Muhammad. And is saying the Quran, the book, came to attest to the truth to that which is in the present tense between his hands, which is what? The Torah. This chapter is telling us that the Prophet of Islam has access to the Torah in his days, and this passage in the Quran is confirming that the Quran came to attest to the truth that is found in this book called the Torah, the book of Moses, and it is what? It's a guidance to the truth and to a straight path. That is interesting. If the Quran came to attest to a book called the Torah, and this book, the Quran, attests to the truth found in the Torah, and both the Quran and the Torah lead to guiding people to the truth and to a straight path, what does that say about the Torah then? So obviously what we just read basically confirms that the Bible, both Old Testament, New Testament, and here the emphasis was on the Old Testament, the book of Moses, that it was a book that was good at the time of Muhammad, existed at the time of Muhammad, it says between his hands, and it is a book that was also containing truth that is also valid to guide people to the truth and to the straight path. This is a confirmation that the Quran said nothing negative about the Bible, and in this case said nothing negative specifically about the Old Testament and the book of Moses. And in the series, in the episodes that will continue in this series, we are going to take a look also at other passages from the Quran that deal with similar situations.